Research conducted by international organization Human Rights Watch reveals that there are approximately 6,000 abandoned mines in South Africa. More than 2,000 of them have been identified as high risk. Question is, how far has the Department of Mineral Resources gone in sealing the holes that have been left open by mining companies? The organization Mintek has been conducting this work on behalf of the department. Joining me now is Flacco Ndlovu, Acting Executive Director at Mintek. Mr. Ndlovu, thank you very much for your time. Those figures I've just pointed out to you, you'll be able to give us an update as to whether you have reduced that number of approximately 6,000 holes that have been left open by some of the mining houses in this country, and the understanding is that 2,000 of them are categorized as high risk. How far have you gone?
Good morning. Actually, the 6,000 is the number of mines, not necessarily the holdings in a mine. So there's a 6,000 mines that have been identified as derelict and ownerless. And of those, then there will be shafts. It's not every mine that is a shaft.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the progress we have made on the sealing of the shafts, to date, we have sealed about 700 of the shafts. And just in the last 3 years, we managed to seal 251 holdings or shafts, mainly focusing in the Gauteng area.
Okay, so let me just follow you properly here. So 700 shafts have been sealed thus far, out of how many in total?
On record, what have been identified by the AG, the number of shafts that are outstanding was 1,120. And we managed to seal the number that I've said. But I think what should be noted is that those are official numbers. There are many other holes or holdings, as we call them, that have been opened by illegal miners. So those will be outside the official numbers. Typically, for a shaft, they can open many more around it so that they can access the underground infrastructure. If they, let's say, illegal miners are fighting about a certain shaft, then another rival gang can go and open up their own somewhere else.
Wow. Almost like a cat and mouse game, if you like. All right. So let's then talk about how many of these holes have you set yourself a target to close at least each year? How many holes do you think you are able to close every year?
We are funded to close 40 in a year, which we have been achieving. So we close a minimum 40. At times we actually overachieve and close more than that. But the target is 40 holes per year.
All right. So 40 holes that you plan to close. In fact, you're saying that you have been meeting this target. Which year did you start closing these holes on the ground?
All right. On Mintek's side, we started 3 years back. And then before that, it was CGS, Council for Geoscience, which was responsible for closing the holes. We have managed to close 251 in the last 3 years.
All right. Let's talk about the difficulties, therefore, Mr. Ndlovu, that you come across in your efforts to try and seal these disused shafts, as you put it. What are the challenges there for you?
The main challenge, I would say, is illegal mining. Most of these shafts are in areas that are considered as illegal mining hotspots. Some of them are not in illegal mining hotspots, and those ones are not too difficult to close because the only challenge there will be the terrain, which we are well versed to deal with. The presence of illegal miners is the challenge on the shafts.
Okay, so that's your major challenge. For people that do research in the work that you do, Mr. Ndlovu, the suggestions are that there are billions of rand that are held, and these monies are from the mining houses who contribute towards a particular fund. I think it's called the Rehabilitation Fund. They contribute towards that fund so that when they up and leave, the mines or the place where they opened these holes is rehabilitated. Is that money being used? Do you know?
Okay, while I'm not in a position to comment on behalf of the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, I can confirm that the rehabilitation that we're doing is of mines that are abandoned. These mines, that's why they're called derelict and ownerless. They don't have owners. The owners could not be found, or they were closed way before the new regulations that are in place now. So then that liability falls back to the state. The contingent liability that the department holds is for active mines, and that part is regulated and managed from that department side.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the closure, the process to seal the mines, if you will. How involved is the process from the point of closing the mine? Because the understanding is that you also issue out a certificate once you have properly sealed that particular hole. How many of these certificates would you say you have issued thus far?
Actually, we don't issue closure certificates. I think the confusion is between an active mine and what we're dealing with, which is derelict and ownerless. Because if you're issuing a closure certificate, it's issued to a mine owner, and it comes with certain liabilities that the mine owner carries going forward. In this case, there is no mine owners. So we close the mine, or we rehabilitate the mine, let's say, and then that land is handed back to the relevant municipality and the community.
Yeah.
And in terms of the shafts, it's the same process. Also, there is a sealing of shafts, and then there's a rehabilitation of mines, which runs parallel.
Okay. All right. And perhaps in closing, very briefly, I'm out of time. The assumption, therefore, is that you are contracted by the department to conduct this work of sealing the mines. In your view, when you say you have now sealed the mine and you say the land has been rehabilitated, what does that mean in practice? Does that mean that, families can move back in there? You can actually even have vegetation being brought back into that space?
Yeah, in the broader sense of rehabilitation, that's what it means. When you say you have rehabilitated a mine, you've retained it to a state where it's ecologically self-sustaining, environmentally self-sustaining. So depending on the commodity that was being rehabilitated, land can be used for many other things, including families moving over. We have seen that happening in Gauteng, where shafts are closed and the mine becomes rehabilitated, and then private developers move in, either with housing projects or other commercial projects. But in the space that we operate in, mainly for rehabilitation, which is asbestos mines, the rehabilitation process is different. There is not much land use we can do there, because you don't want to expose the asbestos that you have rehabilitated and covered. Right. So mainly it's limited to post-land use like grazing, and nothing that involves excavation.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing this information with us and putting us in the picture there. Mr. Flacco Ndlovu, Acting Executive Director at Mintek. This is the company that is contracted to do this work by the Department of Mineral Resources. You've heard it. Officially, there are just over 1,000 shafts that are disused in South Africa, but unofficially, he can't account for those that get opened by illegal miners. It is a very, very complicated process indeed.